The first time I killed a Zx'thraxian warrior, I did it with a rubber band. I know how that sounds. The mighty Zx'thraxians, conquerors of 1,000 worlds, terror of the Orion arm, brought low by office supplies. But that's exactly what makes us humans so dangerous. We can turn anything into a weapon. And I mean anything. The warrior had me cornered in the maintenance shaft of Outpost 7, his chitinous armor gleaming under the emergency lights. He was easily 3 meters tall, with razor-sharp mandibles and reinforced carapace that could shrug off most energy weapons. But he had one weak spot: the sensory clusters behind his auxiliary breathing vents. All I had in my pocket was a thick rubber band from the station's hydroponics bay, used for bundling together the vitamin-enriched kelp we grew for the crew. One carefully aimed shot later, and the rubber band snapped right across those sensory clusters. The warrior went into immediate shock from the sensory overload. He never even saw the maintenance panel I dropped on his head afterward. That's when I learned why the Galactic Council had classified Earth as a death world, and why they were so terrified of us humans spreading throughout the galaxy. It wasn't because we were particularly strong or fast or technologically advanced. It was because we had evolved on a planet that tried to kill us in 1,000 different ways every single day. And we had learned to improvise. Fascinating. Professor Zx'thraxian clicked her mandibles together as she adjusted her translator. So you're saying that on your homeworld, approximately 75% of all plant life is potentially lethal to consume? I nodded, taking another bite of my ghost pepper curry. The other aliens in the diplomatic conference room watched in horror as I casually ate something that would have melted through their digestive tracts. That's right. We basically evolved alongside an endless chemical arms race. Plants developed toxins to avoid being eaten, so we developed resistances and learned to process those toxins. Some we even learned to enjoy. Like that substance you're consuming now? Asked Ambassador Ilrix, their eye stalks wavering in concern. Oh, this? This is mild compared to some Earth foods. We actually breed these peppers to be spicier. You know, for fun. I smiled as several of the delegates unconsciously backed away from the table. But that's just one example. Did you know we deliberately infect ourselves with weakened pathogens just to train our immune systems? Or that we intentionally expose ourselves to radiation for medical imaging? Or that some of us jump out of perfectly functional aircraft for entertainment? The room had grown very quiet. Even Professor Zx'thraxian had stopped taking notes. But why? The question came from General Vexithor, a veteran of the Rigelian Wars who had personally faced down Chronaxian berserkers. Even he looked unsettled. Because we can, I replied simply. Because every challenge that doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Because we've spent our entire evolutionary history on a world that constantly tries to eliminate us, and instead of giving up, we turned it into a game. The truth is that most alien species evolved on worlds far more hospitable than Earth. They developed in environments with stable temperatures, predictable weather patterns, and limited predators. Their worlds had fewer tectonic shifts, less extreme seasonality, and more consistent atmospheric conditions. Earth, by comparison, is a nightmare. We have regions that can swing from scorching heat to freezing cold in a single day. We have storms that can level cities, volcanoes that can blot out the sun, and organisms so tiny they can kill us from the inside out. We have predators that hunt from land, sea, and air, plants that can poison us with a touch, and bacteria that have been waging microscopic wars in our bodies since before we walked upright. And we didn't just survive all this, we thrived. Take the Arcturian invasion of 2157, for instance. They thought they had us cornered when they disabled our advanced weapons systems. What they didn't count on was our ability to weaponize practically anything. When they stormed the lunar base, our engineers had already rigged the coffee makers to spray superheated steam. The maintenance crews had turned cleaning supplies into chemical weapons. Even the hydroponics team got in on the action, using fertilizer components to create improvised explosives. The Arcturians retreated within hours, leaving behind a formal apology and a request to update our classification from Death World Species, Moderate Threat, to Death World Species, Approach with Extreme Caution. But surely your species must have some limitations. Professor Zx'thraxian had recovered enough to resume her questioning. Some environmental conditions you cannot overcome. I thought about the human settlements now thriving in the methane seas of Titan, the mining colonies buried deep in the crushing pressure of Venus's lower atmosphere, and the solar sailors who rode the radiation waves between stars. We've learned to adapt to almost anything, I explained. When we can't survive somewhere naturally, we engineer solutions. We build artificial environments, develop protective gear, or modify ourselves to fit the conditions. There's an old saying on Earth, necessity is the mother of invention. When something tries to kill us, we don't just survive. We study it, understand it, and figure out how to either avoid it or use it to our advantage. That's terrifying, Ambassador Ilrix whispered. No, General Zx'thraxian suddenly spoke up, his warrior's training finally allowing him to process what he was hearing. That's brilliant. Don't you see? The humans aren't just survivors, they're innovators. Every challenge they face becomes an opportunity to grow stronger, to learn, to adapt. They don't just overcome obstacles, they transform them into advantages. I smiled. The general got it. Exactly. Take our sports, for example. We invented activities that simulate ancient survival scenarios. Running from predators became racing, fighting became boxing and martial arts, swimming became competitive events. We turned our survival instincts into entertainment. And this is fun for you? Professor Zx'thraxian seemed both horrified and fascinated. Absolutely. Humans push boundaries for the sheer joy of it. We climb mountains because they're there. We dive into ocean trenches just to see what's at the bottom. We launch ourselves into space because we looked up at the stars and thought, I wonder what's out there. The real turning point in galactic relations came during the Great Plague of 2189. A devastating engineered virus was sweeping through the connected worlds, one that could adapt to different alien physiologies faster than anyone could develop treatments. The death toll was in the billions. Then humanity stepped in. Our medical scientists, with their deep understanding of rapidly evolving pathogens, thanks to our constant battle against Earth's diseases, recognized patterns that others had missed. Our experience with our own planet's vast array of viruses gave us insights that no other species had developed. Within months, we had created a flexible treatment protocol that could be adapted for different species. The same harsh world that had forced us to become warriors had also made us healers. We understood survival at a fundamental level that other species couldn't comprehend. Our death world heritage, it turned out, wasn't just about being able to fight. It was about being able to endure, adapt, and overcome any challenge. So you see, I concluded, pushing away my now empty curry bowl. Earth being a death world didn't just make us dangerous, it made us versatile. We're not just warriors, we're survivors, inventors, and problem solvers. Every human carries within them the accumulated knowledge of countless generations who faced death in 1,000 forms and said, "Not today." The diplomatic conference room was silent for a long moment. Then one by one, the alien delegates began to nod in understanding. Even Ambassador Ilrix's eye stalks had stopped trembling. "I believe," General Zx'thraxian said slowly, "that we have been looking at this all wrong. We've been seeing humans as a potential threat because they come from a death world. But perhaps that's exactly why we need them as allies." Professor Zx'thraxian's mandibles clicked rapidly as she added, "Their ability to adapt, to find solutions in seemingly impossible situations. It's not just about survival. It's about growth, about pushing the boundaries of what's possible. I stood up, ready to conclude the session. That's why Earth isn't just a death world, it's a training ground. Every challenge we faced made us stronger, smarter, more resourceful. We're not perfect warriors because we're the strongest or the fastest. We're perfect warriors because we never stop learning, never stop adapting, and never ever give up. As I left the conference room, I could hear the excited discussions breaking out behind me. The galaxy was finally beginning to understand. Humans weren't dangerous because we came from a death world. We were valuable precisely because of it. Our greatest weakness had become our greatest strength. And somewhere in my pocket, I still carried that rubber band from Outpost 7, just in case. The story spread throughout the galaxy after that diplomatic conference. Other species began to see Earth's harsh conditions not as a mark of primitive savagery, but as a forge that had created something unique in the universe. A species that could face any challenge, adapt to any situation, and find opportunity in adversity. They started calling us the Death World's children, but now it was a title of respect, not fear. Because they finally understood that surviving on a death world hadn't just made us warriors. It had made us teachers, healers, innovators, and explorers. We were living proof that the hardest challenges could produce the most remarkable results. And as humanity continued to spread among the stars, we carried with us not just the strength we'd gained from our harsh world, but the wisdom to know when to fight, when to heal, and when to simply adapt. We were Earth's perfect warriors, not because we were born to fight, but because we were born to overcome. The rubber band? Well, I donated it to the Galactic Museum of Military History. It sits there now, in a place of honor, next to plasma rifles and quantum disruptors. A simple reminder that true strength isn't about having the biggest weapons, but about having the creativity and courage to use whatever tools life gives you. That's the real lesson of Earth, the death world. It's not about being the strongest or the most dangerous. It's about being clever enough to turn rubber bands into weapons, poisons into medicines, and challenges into opportunities. It's about facing a hostile universe with innovation, adaptation, and an unwavering determination to not just survive, but thrive. Because that's what perfect warriors do. We don't just fight, we transform. We don't just survive, we revolutionize. And we never ever stop learning from every challenge we face. Even if that challenge is just figuring out how to defeat a 3-meter-tall alien warrior with nothing but a rubber band and a maintenance panel. Welcome to Earth. Try not to underestimate us. We've had a lot of practice at surviving the impossible.